and thanks for joining us today. We have Gary Shepson from Carl Zeiss Vision, who is going to be presenting on Zeiss's iTerminal dispensing instrument. And here you are, Gary. And then just hit the accept button, Gary. There you go. Perfect.
Just a second here.
Oop, we can't hear you.
Somehow I went to the wrong one here. Just a second.
No problem.
Okay, we're ready to start here. Can you see the screen now?
Yep, looks good.
Okay, good. All right, we are going to be talking today about the new iTerminal 2. This is actually the second version of the iTerminal, and this had some enhancements in that to the original, but a lot of it is very similar. So what we'll be talking about is the latest version of iTerminal 2. Let's first of all just talk about the traditional centration and what has been done in the past. We kind of call this the Victorian method because it is quite old. And this would be just using a PD ruler. We're all familiar with this method. It has some drawbacks to it. It takes a lot of training and experience to deliver consistent and accurate results. And we see that there's a lot of variance between different opticians, even from opticians that are very, very experienced. There can be variance. Also, if someone has a shaky hand or something like that, it can really cause problems with this method. Its main benefit, though, is that it does determine the lens position in a frame if done correctly. The key disadvantage is that it is skill dependent, very skill dependent, and is not really as accurate as you can get. It also is considered by the patient as a very low-tech procedure and very intrusive. The patient really doesn't like, a lot of patients don't like when we get that close to their face. The pupillometer is also intrusive, but it is much more accurate, and it offers good binocular PD measurements. Its main benefit is that it's quick and easy to use. But its key disadvantage is that it really doesn't determine the lens position in the frame. It only determines the distance between the pupils and as it relates to the nose of the wearer. And the reality is we really want to have the centration to the lens of the frame, as we need that to line up with the eye. There was a study that was done of 50 optometrists, not opticians, I'm sorry, and they were each to measure, and with a PD rule, we found that there is a variance of 2.95 millimeters, actually a range of 4 millimeters. The variance is kind of the most important thing here, of 2.95 millimeters for the same patient in measurements that were taken. Then we went to 4 different pupillometers, different brands of pupillometers, and we found variances there. The best ones down to 0.39 millimeters of variance. With the iTerminal, we were found that there was 0.04 variance between opticians in the usage of this machine. The machine does take a skill from the opticians and training on it, but the accuracy of the equipment is just beyond what we've had before. It's the reason that it's so important to measurements is that we're looking for a binocular field of view from each eye. You can see here a right eye and left eye, the binocular field of view, and the important usable ranges then of lenses are in that binocular field of view. And we want to be able to get that measurement to within the center of that usable range so that we're not cutting out any of the patient's viewing area. The importance of accurate centration here, you see if the lens is centered correctly, if we've done correct measurements, the path of the eye will go right through the lens, progressive lens, as it is intended to go through, right through the intermediate to the sweet spot in the near, and keeping distortion to the sides, and we're going right through the very center. That is how the progressive lens is supposed to work. If we're off, this is an example of a 2 millimeter centration error, what will happen is that patient's path of view will go through the distortion in the lens and will be to a side in the sweet spot of the near, narrowing the near, causing the patient actually to have what feels like tunnel vision. So it is, centration error is very damaging to especially progressive wearers, but also to single vision wearers as well, because we can induce prism by being off as much as 2 millimeters in the centration error, even less than that as the power increases. The center of rotation requirement is also very important. This picture is where it's centered correctly. Here, incorrect centration by 2 millimeters can cause a great deal of fatigue to the patient. It really makes visual stress to that patient. So we can see that centration is important, and I think we all know that. What does the customer think, though? There was a study that was done in Europe that asked, when buying glasses, is there anything annoying or bothersome about the process? And what we found here, the number one most annoying or bothersome thing to the actual patient was the quality of the ECP's consultation. That was the number one thing. Pricing was behind that, decision making, the atmosphere, just buying specs is a nuisance in itself, or for some, actually nothing was bothersome. But the number one thing that was found was the quality of the ECP's consultation. So it really makes us think how important it is, a job that the optician does in this process. The Optical Distributors and Manufacturers Association did a survey, and the data from it show that there's a perception among optometrists that if there's a structure that's applied to the consultation, it kind of cheapens the value of their service. This, though, was contradicted by the evidence. There was a mystery shopping that was done, and where a questionnaire was used in the process of the patient, there was a very high level of satisfaction with the service rendered. Where there wasn't that, they didn't feel that high level of satisfaction. The use of high-tech equipment impressed those shoppers wherever it was used and added to the experience altogether. And then what we find is that eyewear retailers often fail to maximize the income per customer because they miss these opportunities to upsell to the patient. And also, by not using the latest technology, we tend to lower the quality and the perception that the patients have of our work. So what is the iTerminal 2? This is a picture of it. It's a very sleek machine, very tall machine, and it does the digital measuring of the precise position of wear for the data. So it is extremely precise. It does this through an optical lens that actually takes a picture of the patient, and then we'll see what we can do with that after that is done. The other thing that the iTerminal does is it's a consultative device. What it does is it allows the consumer to view multiple framed photos, coatings, treatment options, AR coatings, transitions, photo fusion. You're able to actually show the patient all of this, also show the patient what they look like in different photos. This is really nice for a patient that has a very high RX and really is unable to see what they look like in the glasses when they put them on unless they have contact lenses. What can it do for the practice? It really elevates the level of the practice. The customer's experience is unique. It's something that they don't find elsewhere, and they see that a great image of professionalism in the practice. It also improves the customer retention because the satisfaction that the patient has and the better vision that they have because of the more correct measurements that were taken. And it is reproducible over and over again with opticians of all different skill levels. It can be reproducible even among, as we mentioned before, even among very experienced opticians, you can find quite a variance in measurements. But this is extremely accurate and reproducible. The iTerminal is a standing position for patients, but it is adjustable up to 33.5 inches of adjustment. So it can measure a person up to 6'4" tall. If somebody was taller than that, they would need probably to squat down a little bit. That's not as recommended because you want them to be in a natural position. But 6'4" tall is going to cover the majority of your patients. And it can go all the way down to a child or a person sitting in a wheelchair. So it's a very adaptable instrument. It uses a patented technology, patented by Zeiss, that is a speckle target. This speckle target forces the eye to look into infinity. Even though the patient is close to the iTerminal, they are looking into infinity because of this special speckle target. It's quite an amazing new invention, and is way more accurate than a pupillometer for that reason. There are 2 photos that are taken. Actually, only one has to be taken, but it's best to take the 2. In the first photo, what is measured is monocular PDs, monocular fitting heights, and the pandoscopic tilt of the frame. The patient turns to the side and a second photo is taken, and that takes the back vertex distance and the wrap angle of the frame. Those 2 measurements are not as important as the 3 in the front, and so if for time purposes you may want to only take the 1 picture. That is fine. It's allowed with the equipment. Then on a laptop or soon to come would be on an iPad, you're able to adjust the refinements. You can see on my arrow on the screen, you would grab the spot where the arrow is at, and then you can move the whole fitting around. This is just a picture here. It doesn't actually move. The equipment itself looks at these spots here that look sort of like the crash test dummies. That is what it uses for reference points, so that it has these very accurate measurements. Also down here on the side picture, you can adjust the front. You want to get to the back of the frame here, and then you want to get to the front of the eyeball. And so with those measurements, you can get a very accurate measurement. So this would be done on a laptop that actually is provided with the equipment, or as I said, soon to come would be an iPad, which would use the pinching and touching on the screen, easier method. Also, when we do get this lined up, it also shows the cutout of different styles of progressives. So a short corridor or a long corridor, you can make the decision at this point as to which would be necessary for cutouts in the frame. Additional data that you're able to come up with besides the PD, fitting height, all of that we just talked about, it also gives the frame width, the frame depth, the DBL, the head rotation, and the required blank diameter. So it gives a great deal of information, and this all can be synchronized with your practice management system. The iTerminal also has what's called a frame consultation mode. In that mode, this would be a different picture that would be taken. It would be without that device, because the device is very distracting in terms of looks of the patient. But with the frame consultation, they can take up to 4 separate photos and compare 4 frames on one screen and decide which one or which ones they would wish to purchase. Again, as I said, that's very helpful for somebody with a high RX. You can also then demonstrate all different colors of tints. You can also lower this so that they don't see so many colors. You may want to do that because that tends to get a little confusing to the patient, but you can put as many or as little as you want on there. It also will demonstrate transitions and photo fusion. And it will also demonstrate with and without AR coding. This tends to be the most popular one, and it really helps to increase sales of AR coatings when people can see the difference that they look in a frame with AR or without AR. As we all know, the cosmetic values of AR are just as important as the optical values. So additional features of the iTerminal are that there's automatic correction for head rotation. So if the patient's head is turned, it will actually adjust the measurements for that patient, for that head rotation. So you don't have to worry about the patients not being in the right, exactly right in front of the iTerminal. You can connect a screen and mouse directly to the unit, or you can network it to existing PCs. Up to 4 dispensers can be working at the same time on the same iTerminal. It's a really nice feature there. And we also the ability to save the data or to print the data. So depending on your offices, whether it's paperless or whether you actually have the files for the patient, you can do it either way. What we hear from iTerminal users is that it really has been an invaluable tool to them. It can elevate the practice. It differentiates the practice from the competition. It makes opticians and optometrists much more confident in the process of measuring multifocal heights and monocular PDs, plus the other measurements of back vertex distance, panoscopic angle, and wrap that are new to the new customized lenses that are available today. So it's just that step ahead from what we've been doing for so many years. So that is the iTerminal in all its glory. And if you are interested in an iTerminal, just contact your Carl Zeiss Vision representative, and they will be glad to get you information on it, or contact your Soderbergh representative, and they will be glad to get you in contact as well. Okay, thank you. I'll turn it back to Mandy.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for the presentation and taking the time today.